Between 1996 and 2002, there were 34 players who took at least 1,100 shots between 15 and 20 feet out. Of those players, the one who had the best field goal percentage from this range was Glenn Big Dog Robinson. In that 6-season span, he took 1,895 shots from that range and made 47.3% of them, according to StatHead. To put that into perspective how good of a mark that is from that mid-range area, since 2014, there are only 3 players with a better percentage from this range with at least 1,500 attempts. They are Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, and Chris Middleton. If you watch the Milwaukee Bucks play in the latter half of the 90s and the very early 2000s, you probably often said to yourself that was good defense played on Big Dog, but better offense prevailed. Robinson was a player that made countless tough contested shots with very little breathing room. He wasn't a player that created much space off the dribble, as his ball handling wasn't great, nor did he have blazing speed, but he was such a good shooter from the mid-range and never seemed disrupted with defenders draped around him. He had a very high arc on his jump shot, which made it nearly impossible for defenders to get their hand high enough to alter his shots. And Robinson was 6'7", 6'8", so he was able to shoot directly over many opposing small forwards. Also impressive about him was that he was excellent running off-ball screens at his size. A player of today that does this well at around the same height and same position is Brandon Ingram. Now, Robinson was a physically stronger player, but he was like Ingram in terms of some of the off-ball movement and ability to make a lot of mid-range shots with very little space between he and his defenders. Durant, of course, does those things at a high level as well. Robinson was equally good facing up and playing out of the post with his back to the basket. When he would play out of the post, sometimes he showed no hesitation and just turned and launched over his defender. Other times he was more patient and methodical in his approach and would use some nifty footwork and pump fakes to score. Even in transition a lot of times, Robinson would just pull up for a midi rather than take it all the way to the basket. Sometimes he would dribble up the floor himself with pace, although he didn't have the tightest handles as mentioned before. Between 1996 and 2002, he took the 9th most shots in the league. However, in that same time frame, he ranked 70th in total shots taken within 5 feet and made just 54% of them, which ranked 66th out of the 76 players who took at least 1,300 shots from this short range. Sometimes, though, he would showcase some of his creativity with some nifty finishes around the basket. But he just had incredible touch in that mid-range area. Carmelo Anthony is a player many compare him to, which is fair, although not even Melo had better touch than Robinson from the mid-range. Melo, on the other hand, took a higher volume of threes with a little more precision and was way better using his body to draw contact and get to the free throw line. Robinson played with much less physical aggression than Carmelo. Early in his career, Melo was ferocious at the basket, I know this video isn't about Melo, but it's worth noting that between 2003 and 2008, Melo was 5th in total dunks behind Dwight Howard, Shaquille O'Neal, Amari Stoudemire, and Shawn Marion. Robinson, meanwhile, was not anywhere close to that level. Dunks started getting tracked in 1996. The most dunks he had in a season was 40, done twice, first in 96-97 and then again in 00-01, although there isn't an official count in 94-95 or 95-96, his first 2 years in the league. It appears unlikely he topped that number. And many of his dunks came off cuts, which was another one of his strengths. Again, he was very good moving without the ball. After averaging 6.2 free throw attempts his rookie year, he never again would average over 5 of them. As far as his three-point shooting, he took more of them early in his career playing under head coach Mike Dunleavy. In his first 2 seasons combined, he took 531 threes. When Chris Ford took over as coach, that was far less part of his arsenal. He only took 65 threes across 56 games during the 97-98 season, for example. It ticked up again a little more playing under George Karl. For his career, he shot 34% from downtown. The Bucks in the early 2000s with Robinson, Ray Allen, and Sam Cassell were one of the best offensive teams in that era. They had the second best offensive rating in 99-2000 and were number 1 in that category the following year, 2000-2001, a season they made the Eastern Conference Finals. The most points Robinson ever scored in a game was 45 on February 25, 2001 against the Golden State Warriors. Turnovers were a big problem early in his career. He led the league in turnovers, in fact, his rookie year, with 3.9 of them per contest. Not having great handles contributed to that, and sometimes he would get caught up in some congestion and get stripped. Also, he wasn't the sharpest passer. He made a few clutch shots in his career, including this game-winning three-pointer at the buzzer in Utah on February 3, 2000. All in all, he was a 2-time NBA All-Star. After 8 seasons with the Bucks, he was traded to the Hawks, then the next year was traded to the 76ers. In the middle of the 2004-05 season, which was his final year in the NBA, he signed with the Spurs near the end of the season, and that year, San Antonio would go on to win the championship. His decline happened very quickly. In 2001, he was part of Milwaukee's Big Three that made the conference finals, averaging 22 points per game that season. He averaged 20.8 points in his one season in Atlanta, which was 2 years later. But the next year in Philly, he averaged 16.6 points and was limited to 42 games because of ankle and elbow injuries. Then he only played in 9 regular season games after signing with San Antonio late in his final year. Since the 91-92 season, there have only been 5 players in Division I men's college basketball that has averaged 30-plus points per game in a season. Robinson is one of them. He averaged 30.3 points in his second and final year at Purdue. The others who have done it in this time frame are Charles Jones for LIU Brooklyn in 96-97, Bubba Wells for Austin Peay in 96-97, Marcus Keene for Central Michigan in 16-17, and Chris Clemens for Campbell in 18-19. Robinson was originally chosen to play for Team USA in the 96 Olympics, but was replaced by Gary Payton because of injury. So that'll wrap up this video. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe.